Joining me now is Newsweek's Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, we'll get to the Jeffrey Epstein fallout shortly, but let's start with Jasmine Crockett. The right think she is a gift, but many on the left see her as the future of the Democratic Party. Could this Texan be a unifying force that makes the Democrats electable again?
Rita, the only thing that Jasmine Crockett could possibly unify is large swaths of the United States to utterly despise her, to hold her in complete and just overwhelming contempt, and for the Democratic Party to doom itself into continued irrelevance for the next 5 to 10 years or so. I mean, this is someone who is completely and utterly unhinged, whose sentiments and talking points and policy positions and proposals, everything that she says on virtually every issue that I have ever heard her open her not particularly well-informed mouth is utterly at odds with the median American. I mean, if Democrats have any interest, Rita, if they have learned anything, if they have learned literally anything from the 2024 election, if they have learned that their base is actually quite out of touch with the median American, then Jasmine Crockett does not represent the future. She represents the ash heap of history. But the problem is that Jasmine Crockett is a natural progression of the post-2008, post-Barack Obama Democratic Party. Rita, you and I have discussed this. The demolition of Kamala Harris in the 2024 election really should be a very sober moment of introspection for Democrats, where they recognize that the moment that this went off the rails was actually, in hindsight, 2008. The entire Obama coalition of DEI, intersectionality, modern leftism has to be discarded. Jasmine Crockett is not the future unless Democrats are suicidal, which actually, frankly, they might be. And you know what? I kind of hope they actually are.
Well, we can only hope so, but it's incredible her rise in the last, 6 to 12 months. She's really come from nowhere to be so prominent and right up there with the likes of Bernie Sanders and AOC, other sort of far-left radicals who seem to be setting the agenda for the left at the moment. Now, let's move on to the issue that will not go away, the Jeffrey Epstein saga. You're one of the conservative commentators who is urging Republicans not to lose faith in the Department of Justice after the decision to close the Epstein investigation. Let's hear now from some young conservatives on this issue, and this was recorded after President Trump threw his support behind Attorney General Pam Bondi.
I do not agree with the president.
I do not agree.
I actually do agree with the president.
Unfortunately, on this one, I don't think I agree with the president.
I kind of side with Bongino and Patel in this situation.
I do not agree with the president. I think that Pam has brought a secretive energy to the administration and that it is not a good look for the president at all.
As much as I like the president, I do think that that is a little bit of mistrust put into the people.
I think there's a lot of instances where the president should just keep his mouth closed and not give out such opinions.
She had come out in the past and said that they had thousands of videos they were just waiting to release. And then all of a sudden now they're saying, yeah, there's nothing.
I don't believe that Pam Bondi is being particularly effective in terms of her leadership and governance when it comes to the Epstein files.
The women and children who were victims of this entire scandal absolutely deserve the justice.
But Josh, you argue that this has been the most conservative Department of Justice in our lifetime, and that Trump is enjoying an incredible winning streak. But as you heard there from those young conservatives, they disagree with the president. They have lost faith in the AG. And doesn't this decision, Josh, to abandon the Epstein case tell Americans that the ruling elite remain untouchable, that even the most heinous criminals can be protected? It just seems like justice wasn't delivered here.
Well, Rita, those interviews were done at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit in Tampa this past week, and I actually spoke myself. I did a debate on Sunday.
You were
with
there.
Charlie Kirk. I was there. So I saw this myself. I interacted with not necessarily these exact people, but with people at the conference, and the outcry is absolutely real. So I want to clarify what my stance is not. My stance is not that the Trump administration has done everything in the best possible way. They have not crossed every T. They have not dotted every I. In particular, it is very difficult. I would actually go so far as to say it is impossible to reconcile what Pam Bondi said on Fox News back in February with what she is now saying. Either the files were on her desk or they were not. Something is clearly amiss here. And it's been my contention that President Trump specifically himself should do one of those sit down in the Oval Office at the Resolute desk, look right into the camera and just talk straight to the American people for 15, 20 minutes, however long it takes, about what the heck happened here. So definitely I share a lot of these concerns. Rather, my contention, Rita, is the following. One, is that overall, again, I'm a lawyer. I follow the DOJ pretty closely. This has been a very conservative DOJ overall. This kerfuffle aside, the DOJ is assisting Tom Homan and Kristi Noem when it comes to the largest mass deportation operation in American history. They have won massive cases at the United States Supreme Court. Our Solicitor General John Sauer ending chemical castration, the sterilization of children when it comes to so-called gender-affirming care. Massive, massive legal wins there. The nationwide injunction, a lot of this coming directly from the Trump DOJ. I think that Donald Trump is really digging at his heels, for better or for worse. For better or for worse, the president is genuinely digging at his heels. And Rita, I have it from all my sources imaginable that Pam Bondi is going precisely nowhere. So given the fact that Donald Trump is MAGA, that this is his movement, I fully anticipate that his supporters will rally around him and this story will be forgotten 2-3 weeks from now. But I'm not saying that it's been handled in the best way possible. I want to be very clear that it's not necessarily my contention.
Now, we learned last week that the FBI is investigating former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey for possible false statements to Congress. That's just for starters, I would suggest. And of course, incredibly, the left that weaponise the DOJ to persecute their political opponents. They're now playing the victim, Josh. Nina Jankowicz, you may remember her. She calls herself a expert on disinformation. She was going to be the Biden administration's disinformation czar before even they abandoned that plan for being too crazy. Well, Josh, Nina has a byline at MSNBC these days, and she's arguing that these investigations are politically motivated. She writes, political retribution is being normalised in America. How else can we interpret the news that the Department of Justice has placed former FBI Director James Comey and former CIA Director John Brennan under criminal investigation? Josh, what's your response to these claims from this self-styled disinformation expert that this is politically motivated and political persecutions or prosecutions are being normalised?
Rita, my response is very simple, which is that the disinformation operation, speaking of the so-called disinformation czar that never was, the actual disinformation operation that is currently being foisted on the American people through this dim-witted idiot who, thank goodness, never got the position that she was trying to get. The actual disinformation operation is to try to bamboozle and gaslight the American people into thinking that the political retribution against the opponents was anything other than what the Merrick Garland DOJ just did to Donald Trump and his whole movement, his whole MAGA basket of deplorables movement. What the Democrat lawfare complex has done, Rita, over the past few years, we're going to pay the price in this country for years and years, perhaps even decades to come. They have upended every rule. They have set us back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. The rule of law exists in Western-style democracies. It is preserved in the U.S. Constitution to prevent exactly the sort of malfeasance of singling out your top political foe, who in this case happened to be a former and now we know future president of the United States, and trying to fabricate all sorts of ridiculous charges in multiple jurisdictions, trot him out for the mugshot there with Fonnie Willis in Fulton County, Georgia. We have seen no justice for these total malcontents whatsoever. Where is the justice for the Democrat lawfare complex? That is the retribution on political opponents, not this stupid stuff about James Comey and John Brennan, which, by the way, we actually have not gotten any justice for Russiagate to this day at all. All we have is Kevin Kleinsmith, who forged the FISA warrant on Michael Flynn and the others back in 2015. He got a slap on the wrist. He lost his law license for a little bit. That's it. No one has served a single day in jail there. So actually, a lot of us, Rita, want to see justice when it comes to the Russia collusion delusion. And that's been going on for a decade now. If this is what it's going to lead to, then I support it entirely.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because this just seems to be the tip of the iceberg. The Russian collusion hoax, which did so much damage, which was just based on utter nothingness. It was a political campaign that was used to spy on the Trump administration, that was used to really undermine Americans' faith in their democracy. There are so many Americans to this day who think Russia influenced or even bought that election. When are we going to see some consequences for people who were complicit in that betrayal? I mean, that was, I think, again, we've seen so many scandals in the last 10 years. The president being cognitively impaired would have been probably the top one. But the Russian collusion hoax and the way it undermined the American people's faith in democracy, that's got to be right up there.
Oh, it's right near the top of the very list. By the way, John Brennan, who was involved in the Russiagate hoax, at least the Trump DOJ is alleging it, and I certainly myself very much believe that. John Brennan, let's not forget, also affixed his name to the infamous Hunter Biden laptop letter from the 51 deep state spooks. This letter that came in essentially within hours after the New York Post having that article about Rudy Giuliani in Delaware at the laptop at Hunter Biden. We all know that story by now. By the way, Rita, a very fun, forgotten detail of that 51 deep state spook letter, the letter that had Clapper and Brennan and all the usual old Obama bros sign off and call it Russia disinformation. A very fun detail is that the then Biden-Harris campaign staffer who was actually detailed to make that letter happen within 24 hours was a foreign policy campaign staffer by the name of Antony Blinken, the man who would become the United States Secretary of State. So the pieces really do start to all come together here. I mean, this is a really nefarious operation there. Again, I'm hoping that we're going to get some justice. I don't want to mislead the audience, though. I would be pleasantly surprised if there is any substantive justice here. But at this point, Rita, very sadly, I have myself personally gotten accustomed to simply just not getting any kind of justice for some of this country, perhaps even this world's greatest scandals. What about the COVID-19 lockdowns? Are we going to get any accountability from all the people who have cost these children years of their lives and their most precious developmental years when it comes to learning and social skills? None of it. So I hate to be a pessimist and the bearer of bad news, but I myself have personally gotten accustomed to not getting justice. And when you set expectations low, Rita, any kind of justice then ends up being a big one.
Now, before you go, Josh, Donald Trump is being urged to sue Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into bankruptcy after she posted some highly defamatory stuff about him on X. The Democrat Congresswoman tweeted this. She said, "Wow, who would have thought that electing a rapist would have complicated the release of the Epstein files?" Josh, is she really that dim that she doesn't understand that what she tweets can see her sued? She has no immunity on X, or does she think she's untouchable?
Well, you know, let's not forget that people have accused Donald Trump of various forms of rape for many years now. In fact, we actually just had one of Donald Trump's many legal ordeals in New York City pertaining to this alleged rendezvous in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room off Fifth Avenue in New York City back in the 1990s. And the judge in that case very clearly concluded that there was no rape. There was perhaps some sort of maybe kind of sort of sexual harassment or misdeed, but there was not anywhere remotely even close to rape. So there's actually been a legal ruling establishing this in very recently. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not just wrong. She is absolutely, according to a New York court, again, just in the past year and a half, 2 years, she is easily setting herself up for very legitimate defamation. By the way, given Donald Trump's litigious nature, he's nothing if not litigious. We know that about Donald Trump over many decades now. How stupid you have to be to put this out there. I mean, like, how dumb do you actually have to be? I mean, holding aside the truth for a second, like, why would you subject yourself to this? Like, you know, the guy loves his lawyers. He loves sending cease and desist letters. He loves kind of lawyering up there. The guy lives and breathes the legal drama of the courtroom. Why would you do this? I mean, it frankly says more about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's utterly appalling stupidity, frankly, than anything else.
Well, yeah, he's had a couple of big wins recently too, hasn't he, Josh, with ABC and CBS. So, yeah, he'd probably have an appetite for launching some legal action. But I think she would enjoy the attention. She could play the victim again. The president's coming after me personally. He wants to bankrupt me. And it will just give her so much more airtime. Josh Haber, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.